Our guest speaker is Igor Omerza, an expert on the UDBA. He'll explain all that. I just want to explain that we have the film going, but it's set up for people asking questions when he's done, and that's just fine. We've just got normal noise around. I'll be interviewing him separately when we're all done later. So just feel free to, have dessert, listen, and ask questions.
I greet you all and thank you for your invitation. But there's something about UDBA. UDBA is the people's name for the private secret police, political police of the narrow circle of leaders of the only permitted party, the Communist Party. In the failed socialist Yugoslavia, UDBA was never an official name, and it derives from its initial Serbian name, UDBA, Uprava, državne, bezbednosti, administration of state security, to which the people soon added a lowercase letter A, so it's come UDBA. Even communist leaders, Tito and others, used to call that name in their private conversations and secret meetings. On January the 1st, 1967, it was legally renamed from UDB to SDB, Služba državne bezbednosti, Service for State Security. This is Serbian names. Slovenian was Služba državne varnosti. But the people's term UDBA stay in use and will remain forever. Of course, this name has something sinister in it, such as NKVD, KGB, Securitate, Stasi, and so on. The federal UDBA has branches in all republics and 2 provinces of Vojvodina and Kosovo. The UDBA was presided by the OZNA, OZNA, Udelek za zaštitu naroda, Department for People Protection, which Tito established on May 13, 1944. But in Slovenia we have a special case, sadly, because on August 15, 1941, the most important Slovenian communist, then ardent Stalinist, Edvard Kardelj, established the VOS, Varnostno-obveščevalna služba, Security Intelligence Service, modeled after the Stalinist secret police, and which was a killing machine primarily for anti-communists, and this was particularly vicious because the foreign occupation was exploited to primarily eliminate domestic opponents of communists in Slovenia, of communism in Slovenia. Maybe you heard about political murder of Professor Lambret or for Nat Lačen. These are political murders of very important people in Slovenia, very influential. And at the end of the war, a terrible communist terror began in Yugoslavia immediately after the liberation of Belgrade in October 1944. And this culminated after the war in the mass murder of Slovenes, Croatians, and members of other Yugoslav nations, a lot of them on the territory of Slovenia. Because the communist leader knew what this mass murder means, they decided on a conspiracy of silence. So Yugoslav, and in this framework, Slovenian UDBA, persecuted everyone who dared to speak about it, even privately. And of course, UDBA seized the emigre press, which wrote a lot about this big and outrageous crime. In Slovenia, after independence, we have been discovering hidden post-war cemeteries for years after liberation from communist Yugoslavia, and almost 800 of them have been recorded so far. One is near here, Crno grob, of Croatian people, which is a terrible number. And it is not yet final. They contain not only Slovenians, but also Croats, Serbs, Montenegrins, Germans, and so on, soldiers and civilians. The most stalked individual in Slovenia was the poet and writer Edvard Kozbek. The Trieste writers Boris Pahor and Alois Rebula were also heavily stalked in Italy. This is the book about Boris Pahor, stalked in in Italy. Because UDBA was doing in Trieste like in Ljubljana. It was very, very, very efficient in Trieste. The UDBA also imprisoned writer Drago Jančar. In addition, the UDBA intensively stalked important Slovenians at home and abroad who advocated for democratic and independent Slovenia. I'm writing a series of books about them with the collective title Giants of Slovenian Independence and the UDBA. So far, books about Cyril Žebot, maybe you know him, a famous Slovenian political immigrant. Then book about Jože Pučnik, important, the father of independent Slovenia. France Bučar and UDBA, also important. Igor Bavčar about and UDBA. Franz Jeza in Trieste, very important for the idea of independence. These books have been already published in this series. Two more books in this line are in preparation for printing, namely about Dimitri Rupel and Janez Janša. And now I'm going to talk about Milan Kučan. The book Milan Kučan, you see this, and UDBA.
Can you say who he was?
Yes.
People who
Yes.
are familiar with him.
The book contains 560 pages long. He was in the last years of Slovenian socialist or communist regime, he was the chief of Slovenian Communist Party. Very clever man, I must say, because he came to the Free Slovenia and he was elected 2 times for the president of democratic Slovenia, but before he was a communist leader. It's sadly, but it is so in Slovenia. This cover photo of Kučan is when he joined the Communist Party League in June at 17, when he was 17 years old. 17.
Oh, 17.
17 years old. The secret police, UDBA, produced their report into Kučan with the help of microphones in walls and telephone taping. They also used surveillance, secret investigations, and covert photography, as well as mail monitoring and numerous informants. In this way, Milan Kučan learned a great deal about domestic, cross-border, and emigre Democrats, domestic and foreign journalists, priests, and disgraced Slovenian and Yugoslav communists. The first report by the UDBA to Kučan that I found in archive is from November 69. In 69, the writer Boris Pahor, mentioned in this book, published a book in Trieste about Slovenian national question, which attacked leading Slovenian communist Edvard Karel on this matter. Since Karel was a protected animal in the Matrix, Pahor was given the surveillance code name of Jambor, Mest. And UDBA started to confiscate the book at the border, at post offices, and in homes. The leadership of the Slovenian Communist Party did not receive operational documents, which I also called field documents, but rather short reports from these operational documents. Every day, documents from 13 UDBA centers around Slovenia, the biggest town in Slovenia. Every have this special center for UDBA, were merged at the UDBA headquarters in Ljubljana. Thousands of pages coming to Ljubljana from these old centers. The biggest center was, of course, in Ljubljana, the UDBA center. And this all was sending to the headquarters. Then, from this mass of papers, shorter daily reports were made for the political leadership, followed by monthly, quarterly, and annual reports, as well as individual analytical documents for specific content. For example, in the daily report for May 27, year 74, which Kučan also received, is particularly interesting because it contains sentences about writer Drago Jančar, which is now the famous Slovenian writer. This report marked the beginning of Jančar's path to prison. Quote, I quote, "The internal affairs authorities will take appropriate action against Jančar for distributing emigrant literature," end of quote. You see, he was distributing literature and he ended in jail. I described the UDBA Jančar and now as a famous Slovenian writer in my book Kozbek, Pahor, Janča and the UDBA. I use this, how it's called, where American president,
Mount Rushmore.
yes, I use this
It does look
for this. UDBA also kept Milan Kučan informed in detail about the creation and operation of Nova Revija. Maybe you heard about Nova Revija, which paved the way for democracy and independence. I wrote much more about this in my book Veliki in dolgi pohod Nova Revija, the great and long journey of Nova Revija. This is this book. It is interesting to note that a huge number of reports to the communist leadership of Slovenia, 1,287 pages in total, have been preserved from 79 and 80. And Milan Kučan received all of them. That is why I had to make a selection here, which was necessary for other years, which was not necessary for other years. It's very strange that there are so many pages preserved, but for other years you hardly got 1 or 3 or 5 or 10 pages. The year 80 begins with several months of Tito's dying in Ljubljana, and the Slovenian secret police also reported extensively on this to Milan Kučan. I also wrote about this period in my book Jovanka and the UDBA. And I will return to this period in one of my future books entitled The Death of Tito and the UDBA. Well, during this period, the UDBA did not only report on Tito or his surroundings, it also reported about many other matters. For instance, on the illness of the writer, poet, and important wartime figure Edvard Kozbek. I wrote more about Kozbek and the UDBA in my extensive book, Edvard Kozbek, Personal File Number 584. This is this book. As Kozbek, as I already mentioned, was the most stalked person in the failed socialist Slovenia. The Slovenian UDBA also stalked the deposed Alexander Ranković and his family as soon as they arrived in Slovenia. This happened often, as his wife Slavica was Slovenian. In 82, on February 10, I found information about Alexander Ranković staying in the Socialist Republic of Slovenia. This 4-page document was also delivered to Milan Kučan. Here we can see how diligently our secret police followed Ranković even after the death of the paranoid dictator Tito, who, together with his equally paranoid wife Jovanka, had fabricated reasons to remove the second man of Yugoslavia, who was loyal to Tito and was also a great post-war mass murderer. Let there be no mistake, Tito was also a mass murderer. The two were brothers in blood, and the blood shed at their command would fill a lake. Of course, in my book about Kučan, I also deal with the JBTZ, we call it, affair, the arrest and trial of Janša, Bošnar, Tasić, and Zavrl. I myself was interrogated and arrested about this, but I was then released and Janša go to jail. And I proved that Kučan and other communist leaders knew that the secret police had found a military document in their secret investigations of Janša, and that they knew that Janša's arrest was being prepared. Namely, they denied this all the time in public and in parliament. Serbian Alexander Vasilievich Aca, a long-time military secret police officer, and for some time even the head of the secret military political police, publicly exposed Kučan as an informant for the military secret police when Kučan was serving in the army. His code name was Plavi. It means Plavi, blue, because he had blue. Plavi means blue hair. Kučan denied this only after 21 years. When the military archives in Belgrade are opened, we will find out who is lying. I think that Kučan is lying. In 1987, the UDBA delivered 1,261 reports to the Slovenian communist leadership, and Kučan was the party leader at the time. Well, not even as many as the fingers on one hand have been preserved from 2,200. Only maybe 5 documents. You see how big was destroying of the UDBA documentation. And where are the rest? 1,000 or more of them destroyed. Given that most of UDBA documentation was destroyed in a fiery inferno, vanished into thin air, as Shakespeare would say, and through mechanical processing turned into paper pulp, the logical question arises as to how it's even possible to credibly present to the public the anatomy of the Slovenian secret political police, what I'm doing. I'm probably the most suitable person to try to answer this question, as I have written numerous books about the Slovenian UDBA. This is only one, not the whole. And its creator, that is the leadership of our Communist Party. Let's try. First, the UDBA archives, or what remains of it, has been more or less open since 2006. At the proposal of Janša's government, Parliament adopted a law at that time. Second, I would say that the method of researching and subsequently presenting the activities of the Slovenian secret political police is a kind of archaeological work, as I try to extract the logic of the UDBA's activities and individual UDBA stories from fragments of documentation. And thirdly, even more importantly, the destruction of the material was extensive, but somehow uneven. Some parts are completely destroyed, while others are obviously completely preserved. Why this is so, I don't know. I have no answer. And we cannot expect any explanations from the surviving UDBA members in this or any other connections. They worked in the folk and will remain there, fortunately not entirely, because I and few others in Slovenian and in former Yugoslavia are writing about UDBA remains. Thank you.
Questions?
Question or discussion?
Okay, start here.
What was the process? So the UDBA would gather its information, create these reports, and then send them to the different regional heads, and then from there they would go to Belgrade?
The centers, certain centers in Slovenia of UDBA are sending papers in Ljubljana, never to Belgrade, from these local centers.
Okay.
In this headquarters of UDBA in Ljubljana, they sent papers which they decided to send to Belgrade. There were a lot of documentation going from Ljubljana to Belgrade. And also, from Belgrade, they are getting a lot from the federal UDBA informations. And what is very important, everything what is going out outside Yugoslavia, must be informed. Belgrade must be informed and must give a green light because of possible corruption of state, you know. So everything what was going outside Yugoslavia by UDBA was monitoring and giving the permission from Belgrade. There is a lot of documentation going in this regard from Belgrade to Ljubljana and Ljubljana to Belgrade, or Zagreb, or Skopje, or Sarajevo, or other main capital cities of republics, and also the province Vojvodina and Kosovo. So a lot of documents which are destroyed here in Slovenia is preserved in Belgrade. So I was in Belgrade. I was trying to get the archives. But what is the problem in Belgrade? The UDBA archives was not given to Archive of Yugoslavia or Serbia, but they were given to the intelligence service of Serbia, and you cannot get permission to go to archives of intelligence association. It's impossible. But if Serbia really wants to go to European Union, then Slovenia must say, you cannot go before you don't send us all scanned copies from all the documents of Federal UDBA and all the documents which were sent from Slovenia to Belgrade. And also all the documents of secret political police of army, because in Slovenia was so-called Ljubljanska or Ninth Army, and all the papers from the secret war army police, every paper was going to Belgrade. So we must, but if will be this government, which is now in charge in Slovenia, they will never ask for this. If there will be Mr. Janša, then they will ask this, and they will not permit Serbia to enter the European Union if they don't give these papers to Slovenia. And then we will find a lot of new things, what was going on in Slovenia. And also abroad, also in the United States.
Yes.
Do you have any evidence of them operating in the United States? Or either
I have one very interesting thing about United States, very precise, which I, of course, I know there was a lot of things going on in the United States about immigration, Slovenian and Croatian and Serbian, Croatian and so on. But maybe I will just, I prepare one for 2 minutes. In America, UDBA was present, not so hard as in Europe, because it is logistical problems. But I will give you one example of such UDBA doings in America, which I can document it very well. Namely, as I said, I wrote first part of book about most important Slovenian immigrant. This was Cyril Žebot. Cyril Žebot. This is part one. Two other parts are coming out. Professor in Washington, and in 42, Kardel ordered the murder of Žebot in Ljubljana, but was not successful. They killed Lambret, Professor Erlich Lambret, and accompanying with one student. They thought that this was Žebot, but it was not, because Žebot asleep and not going in that day with Lambert Ehrlich. So they mistakenly murdered not Žebot but another person.
So Lambert was not a target?
Yes, the main target, and also Žebot. Every day they walk together to the morning mass in some house, and that day Žebot was not asleep, and Lambert don't want to wake him up and go there and go out from that house with one student, and they kill Lambert, and this student is And they informed the public then in this some paper that Jebot and Lambert was killed. And then after a few hours, they know that this was a mistake. So Jebot then go to Rome and from there to United States, because also Gestapo was looking for Jebot. His father was killed in Dachau in concentration camp. So it was not something they considered this was a fascist or something like this. So after the Second World War, Jebot emigrated to the United States. Our UDBA was following Jebot under codename Peter, mostly when he was visiting Europe, but also I found documents that there was one UDBA collaborator in Brazil who was informing UDBA about Jebot and other Slovenian political immigrants. How it was possible from Brazil, you will see. Namely, political immigrant Janez Ložar, maybe you heard about Janez Ložar, lived in Brazil. He was a close friend of Cyril Jebot, and Cyril sent him from Washington the draft chapters of his book, Spomini u vrtincu, Memories in the Vortex, final title, Nemiljiva Slovenia, Immortal Slovenia. Maybe you heard about this book, Nemiljiva of Cyril Jebot. They sent to Belo Horizonte this drafts of chapters for review between 84 and 86. However, as UDBA informer with the exotic code name Gaucho,
Very appropriate.
real name Bogdan Stefan Šale, he's still alive, was close to him. This Gaucho diligently stole and sent this confidential book material to the secret police in Ljubljana. You see, from Washington to Belo Horizonte to Ljubljana. And he also sent the whole correspondence between Jebot and Ložar, as well as Ložar's correspondence with a number of other prominent Slovenian political immigrants. Maybe you heard some names, such as Tine Debeljak, Jože Jagodic, Anton Merkun, Max Loh, Grum Janez, etc. He also reported to Slovenian UDBA on all of Ložar's important personal contacts. Janez Ložar was his great beneficiary, and Gaucho repaid him in the worst possible way by betraying the one who trusted him. Such types Dante Alighieri in his Divina Commedia placed in the ninth circle of the hell, that is in the eternal eyes of Cossacks. You see, this was some really well documented case of one informant from Belo Horizonte, how informing the Ljubljana about Cyril Jebot and other political immigrants.
Did they carry out any assassinations out in the U.S.? Who did?
No, for Slovenian immigrants was not very aggressive, only by writing, you know. So they killed about 100, kidnapped about 100 Croatian immigrants, but they tried to kidnap some Slovenian immigrants, but but they killed in Ljubljana one Croatian immigrant. So
how about Gorica?
Sorry?
How about in Gorica?
Gorica was on the border. This was a strong center of UDBA in Gorica.
Chicago.
We must differentiate from the post-war years. They killed people from they kidnapped and from Uršić, maybe you heard from Italy, and they killed him here in Ljubljana. But this was this Stalinist era. But afterwards, there were no attempts to kill Slovenian immigrants from UDBA. They are just observing and trying to and many kinds of disinformation. Was circling around to corrupt the people, you know.
There's a lot of disinformation
Yes.
in the United States
Yes,
and
yes.
UDBA.
They were
Put out
masters of
against,
disinformation.
Slovenian Americans.
Yeah.
because they were.
Cardell was Tito's right-hand man, and you said he started basically the secret service of them,
Yeah.
the secret police.
41.
Did they kill him? Did they wind up killing him? Cardell.
Who want to kill him?
Did the organization and Tito take Cardell out after, down the road when he?
No. Even Tito was clever. He probably when he put out Rankovic, he was not kill him, because and Cardell was also one time Tito want to replace him, but Slovenian communists stay very close to Cardell and not permit it. But in Serbia, communists don't take the stand for the Rankovic. Cardell was very strong in Slovenia. He was the king of Slovenia till his death.
Let me ask you a question out of ignorance. How did the UDBA operate on a daily basis? The Stasi had their own machine in East Germany. The KGB operated its own way. Can you tell us a little bit about how UDBA operated in Slovenia during the time that it was active?
They were following people. They had informants around in every surrounding which was maybe dangerous, or they have informers in hospitals, in schools, in every possible places. They were monitoring people, and they have taping the phone. They have microphones in the walls, in the cars, and they photograph people. There was special people who was going after people and looking what they are doing. They also have the possibility to say the public police ask for the car, or maybe ask who go through the border or custom. And they are collecting all kinds of information, and if they thought that somebody is dangerous, then they, if go get him to the court, or maybe say your children cannot study, or we know that you are something do, and say we will go public, and they are frightening people. So most of the population was frightened about UDBA, and they have thousands of informants in every corner, and they are listening what the people are talking in the pubs,
So let me wrap this up with a bow, if you don't mind.
Sorry?
Let me wrap this up with a bow, if you don't mind. Summarize it. You go to the KGB, they're torturing people and shooting them. You go to the Stasi, maybe not so violent. It strikes me that they're a little, just as devious but subtle. They are, I won't kill you, but I'm going to make your life a whole lot harder, or your children's lives a whole lot harder. Am I reading that correctly?
There is a phases. After the war, there was mass murder. Then there was political processing, even after communists in so-called Dachau trials. They kill a lot of people through the judicial murder, and people got a lot of years of prison, for small things, and you have camps for work and so on. After the split with Stalin, it's a little bit not so even. Not mentioned Goli Otok, when these communists who were for Stalin was then put on the island Goli Otok. It was awful. And afterwards there was much more softer pressure.
Thank you.
So we're clear, though. Can you explain for those who don't know the famous World War II killings of Slovenians and other Yugoslav ethnic groups who fled to fled to Austria and then were repatriated by the British back. Who were the people who executed the Slovenians?
One
the
part.
predecessor of
One part was killed by army, by Yugoslav army,
Knoy.
and mostly they were killed by UDBA had his army wing called KNOI, Committee for KNOI. It was a military part of UDBA, was so-called KNOI, K-N-O-A. And they were doing the killings. They were killing thousands of people, and they got alcohol, and they choose the primitive people to do this, and many of them then became alcoholic, made suicide because you killed so many people. There is a consequences also for the killers, you know.
It's approximated to be 100,000 people, something like that.
Yeah, we don't know exactly, but in Slovenia it's awful. We have 800 cemeteries founding in old places in Slovenia.
800 mass graves, yes.
The biggest is near Maribor. This is estimated because they do autobahn, and they found thousands of bones, but this is still much larger. So it is estimated that there is 15,000 people.
So